everybody, I'm Kate Cass, and welcome to a special edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about Gravity Falls. So, Gravity Falls. We've talked about it once or twice on this channel. Despite only running for 2 seasons and having only 40 episodes, Gravity Falls is one of the few things I've seen that has a very active community long after the show ended. Not only are there more people discovering it all the time, but there was still a lot of fun to be had after that summer was over, wondering what adventures the Pines family would have after we said our goodbyes. A fandom that feverishly theorizes like the GF community does wasn't gonna stop just because the show did. Even though Gravity Falls elegantly wrapped up many of its mysteries and overarching stories, there was still one part left ambiguous. One secret in the show's final moments inciting mass amounts of speculation and questions. And that loose thread was, what happened to Dipper's third and fourth clones? I mean, we saw them in the credits fending for themselves in the woods. What happened? How are they doing? How do they survive in the elements when a single drop of water will wicked witch them? Where's their graphic novel? Oh, and also this.
A-S-O-L-O-T-L! My time has come to burn! I invoke the ancient power that I may return!
As he's about to meet his demise at the fist of one Stanley Pines, Bill Cipher makes a final plea to the universe, invoking the power to one day return, seek his revenge, and reignite Weirdmageddon. Now, there's a lot of ways to interpret this message. It could potentially be sequel bait 20 years down the line. It could have been a last-ditch effort by Bill that ultimately failed. It could have been foreshadowing the Cipher hunt. But either way, as is the case with most hidden secrets in Gravity Falls, fans were obsessed with this. Countless theories, AUs, and fan-made continuations spawned from the single backwards message. Even film theory got in on this. Like, a year after the fact, but still. Bill Cipher is arguably the most recognizable and iconic character from Gravity Falls. A top-tier villain for Disney television that could probably stand tall alongside their legendary cinematic villains. After such a cathartic and dramatic defeat, even the slightest chance that he could have survived and might one day return was enough to keep our imaginations energized for years. Now, ever since Gravity Falls ended, it has had its resurgences as its legacy has continued, mainly through books.
I finally understand what all the buzz is about. Reading.
The most well-known is probably the published version of Journal 3, which still sells like gangbusters apparently, and the topic of the 100th episode of Let's Talk About, the graphic novel Lost Legends. So, for our 200th episode, it only felt right to dive into Gravity Falls' next big literary venture, The Book of Bill. The Book of Bill felt like it came out of nowhere to me. The last significant piece of Gravity Falls media was Lost Legends in 2018. Even the 10th anniversary went by with some fanfare, but no new material of any kind. Then, in December of 2023, boom! New book announced, told from the perspective of Bill Cipher, and geared towards the older audience. I honestly had no idea how to feel about this. Sure, I'm always in favor of new Gravity Falls stuff, but what would this book even be like? The whole gimmick with Bill Cipher is that he has vast knowledge and power over this universe and several others, but he also presents himself as manic and spontaneous to the point of being horrifically nonsensical. Bill's chaos works in bursts, and I wasn't quite sure how that would translate into a book a couple hundred pages long. But Alex Hirsch and anyone he recruits along the way have more than earned my trust as storytellers. And I'll give the GF team this. They always know how to promote something. When the Totally for Realsies Oregon Parks Department account started posting cryptic tweets again, and you look at this one in particular a little too closely, I knew we were back.
Don't do this, Kate.
Mike from Literary Lair. I thought you retired.
I'm uploading again, just, more casually.
Oh, good for you.
Oh, thank you, but you can't touch this book.
Why not?
Because the Book of Bill is cursed. I've seen it happen anywhere it's displayed in bookstores. The surrounding ones become infected, taunting you with its presence and altering other books to spread Bill Cipher's madness. Do you know how many copies of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy I've had to damage out? It's too dangerous to go near. Never mind review.
Mike, it's okay. That's just how Gravity Falls promotes itself.
By scaring their fans half to death with spine-chilling consequences to consuming their media?
Yeah, it's par for the course, really. Though this level of dedication is impressive even for them. It's all part of the fun with Gravity Falls. Look, I appreciate the concern and barging into my video like this is an old-school Channel Awesome cameo, but I've swam these depths before. I'll be fine.
Alright, I trust you, but if you're gonna do this, just be careful. Trying to analyze this book may prove difficult.
Trust me, I know.
Oh, and steer clear of Tumblr. I've been seeing a lot of weird stuff in the Gravity Falls tag ever since this came out. What's a billford?
Bye, Mike. A big struggle I've had going into writing this review is that I wasn't even sure where to start. I didn't want to go over the book page by page, not just because, well, at that point you should just read the book yourself, but also because the first 2/3 or so of this thing are Bill's musings, revelations, and observations about the universe around him, and it's just as chaotic as I thought it would be, if not more so. Like, what do you expect me to say about this page? So, for the sake of giving this video something resembling structure, we're gonna split this up into 4 segments. The reader experience, Bill's hilarious musings, Gravity Falls lore, and the big stuff. If you know, and if you don't, just wait. Part 1, the reader experience. This is where the book really shines in my opinion, because the Book of Bill is not just a diary for Bill Cipher to chronicle his own thoughts and observations, it's not Bill's version of the journals. The Book of Bill is an immersive sales pitch, where Bill Cipher quite literally bursts from the pages, projects his thoughts onto this book to entice you to keep going, and edits said pages in real time to make a more convincing case, that he is fun to hang around with and wants to help the reader see things the way he does. How convincing a case he makes is, well, up to you. The key to this book's engagement is, like most of Gravity Falls, how incredibly packed it is with details. Every wall of text or in the corner sight gags has been written out completely to be a well thought out joke. For example, there's this diagram of the Book of Bill that says the pages are made of woven brain matter, something that is not just disturbing Bill rambling, but integral to the continuity and immersion, because since Bill is a creature of the mindscape, it's the only way he can project himself and his thoughts onto the pages. It's sensical nonsense, and it adds the experience tenfold. The book's attitude towards immersion is set up right away when it begins not with Bill, but with Ford, placing a warning inside for the reader to not continue this book, not to engage with Bill on any level. An active cautionary tale from someone who has fallen for Bill's promises and flattery before. It's a great addition because it turns this from just reading a book to following along with an experience alongside the Gravity Falls cast in what feels like real time. Ford is able to place these warnings in the book because it's a book that exists in the Gravity Falls universe, a tome that appears, infects other books, and cannot be completely destroyed. It makes the book feel like a much more ominous experience right from the get-go, whereas if it opened right away with Bill popping out of the pages, it could have felt a little too silly. It's clear Ford is still skeptical on if Bill was really destroyed back during Weirdmageddon, and this book suddenly appearing only increases the lingering effect of the paranoia Bill instilled in him. Meaning Ford is just as unsure if Bill survived or not as we've been all this time, using a lot of the same reasoning fans have over the years with their speculation. But Ford still cautions against continuing, even if you're the type to ignore reason, even when it's staring you in the face. I mean, I've made being a Gravity Falls fan a core part of my personality for 10 years, so... Besides, if you already paid for this book, you lightly ignored Ford's warnings and kept turning the pages no matter how many conditions you had to meet to do so. Like making an official deal with Bill, or offering your blood to help write the pages. Though stuff like that would admittedly make me hesitant to get a copy of this secondhand. It's not just in the beginning, this is a consistent piece of the way the book is read. Like, this part, where Bill tells you that in order to continue the book, you have to kill this little elf. His name is Scrimbles. Well, I guess this review is over, but I already spent so long working on it, and this is a big milestone, and just think of the engagement from the retrospective subscribers. Okay, but if I'm gonna do this, you're all in on this. We're in this together, right? I'm sorry, Scrimbles. It's for the people. All's fair in loving content.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we're gathered here today to remember the life of Scrimbles the elf. A kind, loving, selfless little elf who was cut down because some jerk pony
Here we go again.
have finished this video months ago. Decided killing him was the only way to continue. Was the content worth it? Was it? Look me in the eyes and tell me, was it worth it, Kate? Was it? A poor defenseless elf is dead. And what? Why? Why did you do this, Kate?
Oh, knock it off, Sebastian. He's not real.
Yeah. But you know what? Zoom in, camera guy. Come here. It's still real to me, damn it!
I mean, even he admitted the page after looked interesting.
Yeah, that's right. And now he'll never get to see it now because our curiosity's got the better of us. We just had to go ahead and continue reading, didn't you? What world is this where we value a book instead of the life of a poor defenseless little elf?
What are you even doing here? I thought you were retired from content creating too.
Whoa. Let me stop you right there, Watson. I only went on hiatus. Rebranding. There's a big difference. Besides, you don't get to do dark crap like this every so often, so somebody has to come in and take the load off.
True. I did need some assistance with this joke. Even though it's fictional, I did feel pretty bad about it.
Look at it this way. At least you get a special button to commemorate it.
Huh. Worth it! There's some really fun interactive prompts with this book to sell the fantasy of it. You get invested quickly in the absurdity and chaos and constant inconsequential moral dilemmas. Apparently Alex Hirsch wanted even more elements for the reader to interact with, like pop-ups and polls, but it wasn't in the budget. All is to say that, for the first time ever, Bill Cipher entices us, the viewer, with the very same thing he persuaded people like Dipper and Ford with. Answers. We have some big questions we would love answers to, but given this opportunity, Bill's gonna tell us all of his opinions about everything life entails. Part 2. Bill's musings. About half of this book is dedicated not to telling a linear story of any kind, like, say, the journal, but for Bill to offer his insight on many life topics and his point of view on as many areas of the world as possible, complete with tests, anecdotes, and countless visual references. My only major issue with this book probably falls under this category, and that's that sometimes there could be too much to consume. Some pages are filled to the brim with passages and crammed with visual gags that it can be overwhelming to take it all in or feel like it's taking a long time to make it through the pages when you're trying to appreciate it all. I know it might seem odd to complain about something being stuffed with content, especially when it's witty and fun, but I was definitely struggling in some parts, either losing my patience and coming back for smaller gags later, or taking a break after a particularly busy page. But even when it's overwhelming, taking the time to absorb all the information on each page, whether through multiple read-throughs or just taking your time, is absolutely worth it because it's all written in Bill Cipher's very unique voice. He has the capacity and power to gain access to all the secrets and knowledge in the universe, but is so sporadic and chaotic, you never know if what you're hearing from him is some bizarre cosmic truth, or something that came from his own twisted worldview delivered with a spine-tingling glee. And this book is nearly 200 pages of that attitude in full force, without the concerns of network broadcasters. Complemented with tons of artwork and graphics with a wide array of visual styles, from the quirky to the demented to the straight up disturbing. It's one of the things that contributes to the sensory overload I sometimes feel flipping through this book, but the effort is clear throughout, and the potent ambition to give each section its own style to represent different concepts makes it even better. The standout to me was all the artwork and props of Bill's time influencing human history, like these Precious Moments parodies that are indeed precious. I love triangles, I love them so much, I want 20 of each. I know the Mystery Shack made them, but they're out of my budget. They're still amazing though.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So many artists came together to make this book feel more alive than it needed, and it leaves a big impression.
HexDawn?
The always reliable Ian Worrell, bringing the insanity of Gravity Falls to life once again, and the return of Andy Gonzalez, amazing journal illustrations.
Hex.
Trevor Henderson's absolutely disturbing photorealistic art style for urban legends.
Hex.
These pieces of Bill memorabilia immortalized by CG artist Gabriel Suarez and Louis Zhang. All of the effort Aaron Boffman went in to make an actual Bill Cipher popsicle.
Hex.
Yes?
What are you doing?
I'm just offering some much-needed insight and credit to the underappreciated artistic angles of this piece of media. That's what I do.
I know that, and you're great at it. It's what your channel of Backstage Magic is all about.
Ooh, shameless plug. Appreciated.
But you're not even a Gravity Falls fan. How do you know all of this?
Research, intuition, and a Google Doc of some of the actual fans compiled that will be linked in the description.
Well, that's convenient.
And comprehensive. This book wouldn't look like this without all of their contributions, so go appreciate them.
I can't possibly go through all the great visual gags and references throughout this book. Like I keep saying, every page is packed with them, and as fun as they are, just highlighting all of them could get repetitive and it's not super productive. So here are some of my personal favorites. Bill's version of small talk continues to be reminding you of your own mortality. There are tons of jokes about the effects Bill's popularity has had on the world at large, like taking a jab at all the real people who have gotten real Bill Cipher tattoos, and if you are contemplating doing that, Bill offers some ideas for you. Speaking of that, I forget where this originates from, but it was said in some supplemental material once that anywhere you draw a symbol of Bill's cipher, it becomes a new point of view for him, and this book canonizes that. So be careful where you doodle this guy. Alex Hirsch takes advantage of the fact that The Great Gatsby became public domain in one of the most committed cutaway gags I've ever seen, when the book just becomes The Great Gatsby for 5 whole pages until Bill loses patience with something on the average middle schooler summer reading list. But I'm sure he didn't do anything to the book, it's fine.
Ah, my favorite way to end the day, with the classic enriching works of F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Want to hear my impression of you in about 3 seconds?
Brendon, we need to be more careful what we pick up when we're thrifting.
There's tons of diagrams or demonstration Bill gives on stuff like the human body or the trolley problem, and each and every one only gets more and more unhinged the more you read it, and that's part of what makes it so funny. There's a segment where Bill conducts a celebrity interview with himself, which is, again, really funny, but the most noteworthy part is this look into Bill's Weirdmageddon apology video, and yeah, I don't think I need to elaborate on that one. That's gold. And finally on my personal favorites list, Bill also informs us that the universe is not in fact just a hologram, but the holographic surface of a Pokemon card. Okay, 1, Pokemon references, always a win for me. I'll always perk up at seeing this, and this book actually has a couple. And 2, considering how absurdly expensive Pokemon cards have gotten over the last couple of years, some of them had better contain the secrets of the multiverse to justify that price tag.
Want to hear the exact time and date of your death?
But Bill also has a lot to say about the meat sacks he's gotten so has the most fun toying with. Part 3, Gravity Falls lore. Let's be real, this is what we all get pumped for whenever some new Gravity Falls material comes out. The show may have told a very compelling and complete story with its 2-season run, but we got so invested in the world and the characters that any chance to learn anything new is like finding an unexplored path on a treasure hunt. It's like City Slickers 2, The Search for Curly's Gold, if anyone remembered that existed. The Book of Bill might have the most fascinating angle of doing this yet, because the book is told from the point of view of an omniscient billion-year-old being who can look into your deepest, darkest thoughts virtually undetected. So the universe of Gravity Falls is explored from a vantage point never before seen or even thought possible. The first standard example of this is when Bill reveals what each of the characters dreams about, and how he's explored the heads of multiple characters without their knowledge, which might be a callback to one of the original drafts for Bill's debut episode, Dreamscaperers, where there was apparently going to be a whole sequence where Bill hopped through the dreams of other characters. Remember, Bill can explore dreams even without a deal, and our dreams are often, if not always, shaped by our memories in some way, even if it's highly abstract. There's the silly, somewhat expected stuff like Bill reveling in every moment of Dipper's personal humiliation he can find. There's sad stuff like how Wendy dreams almost exclusively about her mom, who is never seen or mentioned on the show, but when that happens, natural conclusions are drawn, and yeah, that's depressing. There's the game changers, like how Dipper and Mabel's parents might have been having marital issues, and that's believed to be one of the reasons they sent the kids off to Gravity Falls that summer in the first place. And there's the downright meta where Bill pranked Dipper with dreams about the author, with several characters implanted into the famous setting of the McGucket hoax. Boy, the crew were really proud of that prank. As they should be. There are 3 sections of this particular category that I want to mention before we get into the really big lore dump. There's the full-page spread with a peek into various parallel universes, containing versions of Dipper and Mabel, who lost many of the encounters with the supernatural the Prime kids made it home safe from. This is one of the most eye-catching and circulated pages in the book, and it's easy to see why. Its ambition is not only obvious and impressive, but horrifying in the implications of literally every parallel Dipper and Mabel. This might indeed account for every possible failure the Mystery Twins could have had throughout the series. Every one has such morbid implications. Bill also spent quite a bit of time in Mabel's dreams after Ford's return, HexDawn. While this section is dedicated mainly to more Xyler and Kraz antics and Mabel's bubbly eccentricity that Bill became quite acquainted with, which might have helped him in constructing Mabelland, it also gives us a peek into how Bill views Mabel. Something that never really got addressed on the show, but I know the crew considered. That Bill admires Mabel's brand of chaos, and how he sees her as someone who could be like him if she didn't have that pesky conscience. On top of the ingredients for Mabelland, this section also offers some insight into how Bill plotted to use Mabel to get the rift. Exactly how he planned out that now infamous moment where Mabel did indeed give him exactly what he wanted. For a plan that I've complained about not seeing how it was concocted, it is nice to see some stage of the plotting. How Bill could get Mabel to do something so out of character.
This is totally meta.
But the most fascinating segment of Bill diving into another character's mind, for me, is when he briefly goes into McGucket's mind, or rather, tries to. Bill recounting what it's like to navigate a mind scarred and damaged by the memory gun is borderline horrifying. And keep in mind, this is when McGucket was slowly recovering. There's something unsettling about Bill being in a mind like this in a way that makes even him uncomfortable, which I think is the first time that's ever happened. When a residual ember brushed against Bill, he describes it as feeling a kind of pain that wasn't hilarious. This plays into something going on throughout the book that we'll talk more about later. Remember though, this is Bill's book, and if he's going to get us on his side, he's going to have to give us what we really want. Answers. Answers to what he really is and where he comes from.
For centuries, mankind has been watched in many forms by the all-seeing eye. But what do we really know about this eye? Do we know why it's chosen to watch us? What it thinks? What it feels? How about what its childhood was like? Behind that single eyeball is a dapper demon with a millennia-long story to tell. A quest to find its true place in this vast universe, and where he could get away with dismembering the most sentient beings without someone making a fuss about it. This is the story of a little yellow outcast trying to find a place where he belongs. This is the story of a triangle peg trying to fit into a round hole. This is the story of Bill Cipher.
Thanks for using your awesome documentary narrator voice to introduce this segment, Wings.
Anytime.
If I'm being honest, Bill's backstory was never something I was all that concerned with. I just kind of took his menace and madness at face value and left it at that. Bill was such an undefinable being that to imagine his origin seemed like a frankly impossible task. Even Bill says so himself when he begins the story with, "If you came to a triangle looking for death, you're barking up the wrong treatise." Now, we did get a hint of how Bill, or at least his mission, came to be in the series finale of Gravity Falls.
Imagine living in the second dimension. Flat minds in a flat world with flat dreams.
The implication is that Bill had aspirations to be more ambitious and seek more from life than his fellow denizens, and liberated his world by destroying them all with little to no remorse. And that's kind of what happened if you take Bill's recollections as gospel. Which I wouldn't. Granted, Bill might be one of the most unreliable narrators in the history of the universe, but since he's the only one who was there, this is what we got to work with. Bill's history between his early years and the events relevant to the story of Gravity Falls is quite long and involved, but there's only a couple of pages dedicated to his home dimension. The second dimension. Bill claims that he was the most super duper specialist whittle thing that ever graced his world or his people. He was so super special he even had a gift, able to see beyond the confines of the two-dimensional world he was born into, capable of perceiving the third dimension and even beyond. And Bill wanting to extend that knowledge he was gifted with is what led to the aforementioned liberation. Events that are heavily redacted when recounted in the book, and nonchalantly repressed by Bill when pressed on them. We'll come back to this as well. What matters now is that Bill was free to travel the universe he witnessed from afar and sought out a place to fit in. With his powers, he decided to become a galactic overlord. I mean, I guess it fits his qualifications, so why not? Recruiting any maniacal outcasts he crossed paths with along the way, who we now know as the Henchmaniacs, and claimed the Nightmare Realm as his own, causing chaos and mayhem for the sheer thrill of being defiant for an indeterminable amount of time. He and his crew probably would have been content to do that for all eternity, except it turns out that the the Nightmare Realm was slowly but surely decaying, meaning they needed to find a new home dimension, and soon. Well, soon for them, which was like a few billion years. So Bill targeted Earth as his new home because it had a weak veil between dimensions, which would have been a quick and easy solution, and Weirdmageddon would have happened back when the dinosaurs were still roaming the Earth, if not for...
Hear this, Cypher.
Ugh, Time Baby.
I always got a kick out of the way Bill addressed Time Baby with annoyance here. I don't know if it was meant to be read in a way that hinted at them having an antagonistic history, but it sure as hell sounded like it even back then. There's some great additional lore about how the Time Paradox Avoidment Enforcement Squadron exists to keep the domain of Time Baby safe, which just so happens to be Earth. So when Bill barges in trying to get interdimensional squatters' rights, he's intercepted immediately. But Bill still got the jump on him, and now we can add Baby Titan to the list of sci-fi replacements for the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. This is getting to be a weirdly specific trope. From then on, Bill's plans to enter the physical realm of Earth began. He still couldn't get through without a gateway, and thus he slowly influenced any humans he felt were capable of constructing a portal for him and his henchmaniacs to cross through. Unfortunately, human technology evolved a little slower than Bill wanted, so a lot of his more elaborate attempts ended in failure. But that didn't stop him from creeping into heads and causing mayhem for millennia. The segments detailing Bill's influence throughout history is just as clever and unhinged as everything preceding it, like how Bill inspired a lot of our more marvelous and unusual natural wonders. Turns out they were very unnatural. There's a passage dedicated to Bill giving settler women the power of witchcraft to spice up the Salem days. This in no way helps his mission to build the portal. He either does this for kicks, or he's secretly a feminist. Hard to say. Also, he can possess a goat! He can do that! That's confirmed. Those theories that he was watching the Pines family through Gompers were on the right track after all. There's this full-page spread about how Bill crashed in Roswell once through an open dimensional rip caused by the atomic bomb, which is insane. This was also suppressed and left confidential by the same branch of the government Powers and Trigger worked for. You gotta love a classic obscure government agency dealing with the weird stuff, and it's kinda cool that Gravity Falls' version has been operating for such a long time. It's even implied they were responsible for the Tremblay cover-up, which might finally resolve years of speculation on who this faceless agent is. We're solving all the mysteries in this binded blessing of a book. And not attached to any extended world building whatsoever, I adore Cypher Symphonies. One look is all it takes to see how utterly hilarious it is. It's one of those pages that immediately catches your eye just flipping through the book. A cartoonist making a deal with a dream demon to create a big hit makes a little too much sense, I'm gonna be honest. Manifesting the most horrifying rubber-hosed abomination to hit the silver screen since Mr. Ring-a-Ding.
I'm a two-dimensional character. You can't expect backstory.
The largest segment in Bill's time trying to find a willing pawn is dedicated to a man by the name of Thurbert Mudgett Wagstaff III and the Anti-Cypher Society. This is a long passage, which makes it kind of divisive. It can feel like a bit of a tangent to spend so much time with characters we've never heard of before and will never hear from again, but I kind of liked it. This turn-of-the-century group of wayward people who all had an encounter with Bill and wish to expel him from their lives before he forces them to make good on their end of the deal is such a great idea. I was so invested. It's funny and surprisingly tragic by the end. I got a real kick out of it. I feel like if this look at Bill's influence throughout history was an episode of the show, this group would be much more beloved. To see a ragtag fantasy quest-style group assembled to take down Bill Cypher, but not having the means to do it in any way effectively. Indulging in archaic pseudosciences to try and achieve their goal to stop something they can't begin to comprehend? How is that not fun to read? That said, a couple of them turned out to be right on the money for how to get rid of Bill Cypher. Some innovators are just not appreciated in their time. The Anti-Cypher Society is emblematic of one thing, though, that all of Bill's attempts to find someone who can construct a gateway for him have proven to be dead ends. Through lack of resources, resistance to holding their end of the bargain, or just not wanting to bring about the apocalypse, which Bill sees as kind of a buzzkill move, he's no closer than he was when he first tried. The first place he tried to enter our realm is the closest he's ever gotten. Bill's first destination was Gravity Falls. Now, when I read this and realized how much influence Bill was having on the world at large, I was ready to learn that Bill was somehow responsible for Gravity Falls being the way it is. But no. Gravity Falls was already plenty weird by the time Bill entered the scene. It's a recognized weak point between dimensions, but not by any being's known doing. It just is. It was already drawing in the weird and unusual when Bill first discovered it, which was millions of years ago, and I love that. In a book full of absurd conclusions explaining the wonders and mysteries of the universe, Gravity Falls is still an outlier. Bill was an anomaly drawn by the natural weirdness magnetism of the valley that would become Gravity Falls, just like everything else. Something that does have an explanation that I don't mind at all is the origin of the prophecies and warnings about Bill we've seen in the Gravity Falls caves. They were put there by the first person to make contact with Bill Cipher, a shaman who not only warded off Bill from returning to Gravity Falls, but foresaw the individuals who would witness Bill's destruction, which became the famous Cipher Wheel Zodiac. That's a pretty brilliant way to integrate what the Zodiac became into the history and lore of Gravity Falls. It's cryptic, yet so clear, and could probably fool people into thinking that this was the plan from the beginning. I really dug it. After thousands of years of trying to find an individual who could build a portal for Bill, who could be brilliant enough, isolated enough, and maybe even crazy enough to listen to a dream demon, Bill finds his pawn and partner. When Bill is able to return to the very first place he attempted to cross into after thousands of years of exile, when a young researcher desperate to change the world breaks the spell. Part 4. The big stuff. Alright, here's what you all came for. Of all the people connected to Bill Cipher, no one is more widely theorized and speculated about than Stanford Pines, two of Gravity Falls' most intriguing characters that had much less screen time than you might remember. A big part of going back to Gravity Falls has been reminding myself how much of Bill and Ford's history is canon and how much is fanon. Because in the show, and even in Journal 3, there's not much. They're not even confirmed to know each other until episode 35 of a 40-episode TV show, and their messy, conflicting relationship was something I can only generously call a B-plot. But, like most things in Gravity Falls, what little was there was so gripping, so tantalizing, so ambiguous but littered with horrific implications that the fandom ran wild with it and created several versions of what Ford's time with Bill looked like, pre- and post-betrayal, with one unifying factor: that Bill manipulated and tormented Ford every conceivable chance he got. What happened between Bill's betrayal and Stan's arrival has been pretty ambiguous. The additions made in Journal 3 provided a bit more context to what happened, but not a lot. We had an idea that Ford was secluded, not sleeping, and constantly being watched by Bill, but nothing else beyond that. Fans have filled in the blanks for a long time now, from an ambiguity that created a lot of angsty, horrifying scenarios that fandom loves to fill in blanks like this with, causing a lot of people outside the loop to think that Gravity Falls is a lot darker than it actually is. The Book of Bill has a section dedicated to further musings from Ford about his encounters with Bill and the downfall of their partnership, and all that torment and trauma we've been putting Ford through in fanworks for the better part of a decade turned out to be right on the money.
Hey, you can call me Orange Octopi, and if you know me at all, it's probably for my fanfiction writing. It felt kind of self-congratulatory to call myself a prolific writer, but then I remembered I have over 30 Gravity Falls fics published on AO3. So, yeah, I don't know what else to call that other than prolific.
I don't know, obsessed maybe?
Aren't we all?
So true. With my good friend's help here, and with all the new information offered in the Book of Bill, we're going to play a brief game of...
Is it canon? I have a list here of the many ways Bill tormented Ford that we see most commonly across various fan materials over the years, and we're going to see how close we got to canon.
All hurt, no comfort here.
Let's start with one I know I've used in plenty of my fics: Bill being emotionally manipulative and convincing Ford they don't need anyone besides each other.
That is indeed canon.
How about Bill running around in Ford's body, causing havoc to torture him?
That is also canon.
Let's see. What about Ford dealing with numerous injuries, bodily harm, and immense disorientation from fighting off Bill, all while in the depths of sleep deprivation? That's a classic.
You bet your boots that one's canon.
3 for 3, we're really racking up the points now.
Oh, I got one. How about forcing Ford into a comatose state where he forcibly tears at his nerves, rewires his brain, creates horrifying scenarios he can enact on Ford with his own body, and emphasizes his insignificance to get Ford to comply.
Whoa, yikes. What fic is that from? I think they went a little overboard.
Oh, that's canon. That's from the Book of Bill.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, see? Right here.
Yeesh, that's terrifying.
So disturbing.
I love it. I have like 5 fic ideas from this already.
I'm gonna read it again. An attempt to tell the story of what Bill's time with Ford was like was going to come with a hint of tragedy because we know how this all turns out. From the moment Ford first entertains the dapper demon, we know that he is on the path to irreversibly altering his life forever. So when given the opportunity to canonize what exactly happened and what the believed good times and the eventual bad times looked like, it's presented in a way that is perhaps obvious, but is still very eye-opening to read. As an abusive relationship. At first, Ford and Bill's connection is framed as two lost souls finding each other. Ford may have found a home in Gravity Falls, but he remained lonely. He felt like he fit in among the anomalies and cryptids of Gravity Falls, but not the people. Any attempt to connect socially by just being himself is met with the same scorn and distaste as it was before, except now he doesn't have Stan around. And now we know that Bill has searched for thousands, if not millions of years for someone that was just the right combination of weird, eccentric, and brilliant to construct the portal for him, but once Ford gets on his radar, he sees not just a tool, but a fellow outcast. He says proudly that Bill views Ford as one of his henchmaniacs. Someone capable of using his high IQ to make meaningful scientific progress, yet chooses to run around the woods cataloging gnomes all day. So when Bill begins to inspire Ford, he not only takes what the triangular trickster says as gospel, but he finds something he really needed. A friend. Someone to lift him up, take his passion seriously, and believe in his potential. And Bill just gets a kick out of hanging around someone who thinks weird is cool, even when Bill can go too far in his gestures. There's this one passage that really stood out to me, where it turns out Bill did much more to Ford's brain than just possess him when he slept. Because Bill was given full access to his mind, he can interfere with it in all sorts of ways, even awake. Mostly in ways that Ford finds intriguing, though this part specifically got to me. He sped up my mind when it's sluggish, and calmed it down when I'm anxious. When Ford feels his mind, his greatest tool, is failing him or running away from him, Bill can swoop in and correct it. Ford is often headcanon as being neurodivergent or somewhere on the spectrum, and I think this description could definitely add credence to that. If your brain is wired differently, as most neurodivergent people are, someone offering to come in and rewire it instantly and then put it back, in a weird way, I could see why Ford would see that capability as a gift. Though thankfully, this book frames it for what it actually is. Horrible and invasive. As time goes on, it's clear from an outside perspective how one-sided this relationship truly was. In this search for answers to the mysteries of Gravity Falls, and in the process of developing the portal, there are times where Bill will disappear for long stretches of time and neglect Ford's needs because their mission is more important. Illustrated excellently in the section that recounts the long-lost Gravity Falls holiday special. This is mainly a quick break to have some fun and get another peek at Ford's time working with Fiddleford. It's really cute because it ties into the famous first look at Ford back in The Time Traveler's Pig. So if you ever wondered what Ford did after hearing Dipper and Mabel in his yard, he got captured by Krampus and rescued by Fiddleford, who beat it up with a banjo. You know, that would have been at least my third guess. It's a story that's there to show that Ford did have genuine friendship right under his nose and only appreciated it occasionally. There are a few instances of seeing Ford get close to realizing what is really important or making an effort at wanting to be a part of something better. He performs a very nice gesture after Fiddleford does so much for him during the holidays, and there's even a couple of mentions of Stanley. He's still angry, no question, but there are definitely moments of doubt where, if Ford was by himself or had better influence, he might have reconsidered those feelings. But whenever Ford starts to sway towards something healthier or questions their relationship, Bill floats back in and makes him feel bad about it. That he deserves better, that he should be grateful for what input Bill offers, and destroys anything connected to sincere acts of friendship and compassion, worming his way into Ford's mind until he is the only thing that remains. As we all know, Bill's true intentions would eventually be brought to light, and Ford would do everything in his power to stop him from crossing over. Unfortunately, he only has so much autonomy of his own left at this point. Okay, so this is where we get to the point in the timeline that people really farm for the angst. Reading Ford recount his attempts to fight against Bill despite having little to no leverage to do so is the kind of devastation I only expect from AO3. It's really bizarre to see it in an official piece of media, but in a weird way vindicating. The Gravity Falls community is full of degenerate outcasts who love torturing their faves, and finally, we are thriving! Jokes aside, I commend Hirsch for treating this with the weight it deserves and recognizing how horrifying this scenario is in a way that was implied but never fully expressed on the show itself. Bill's torture is described in horrific detail from the moment Ford turned his back on their mission, and to finally get the full picture of this living nightmare of his own design Ford went through is gut-wrenching. Recounting scenarios of Bill having access to Ford's mind and, while he slept, his body, while Ford is trying to resist and destroy him, Ford used every ounce of defiance he has as he's swiftly being torn apart from the inside out. He gave up so much to Bill, but fought so hard to keep what little he had left. A fight he kept up for decades until Weirdmageddon eventually came.
Even if you get rid of me, you'd miss me. Admit it.
I have missed you, I replied. He smiled. But my aim is getting better!
The moment swapping between determination and desperation is what truly makes this so heartbreaking. A lot of people have pointed out that Ford's solution to hide the journals wasn't the smartest approach long term, and it turns out Ford would agree. His first instinct was to burn the journals, but when faced with the flames, journal in hand, he couldn't do it. His research was too valuable for him, and that makes sense because when you really think about it, right now, it's all he has left that is his own, because he's pushed away everything else to make room for Bill, until out of pure desperation, with no other solutions, he contacted Stan. I feel like this is also a good time to mention how Bill and Ford's relationship is interpreted. Many view what happened between Bill Cipher and Stanford Pines as having the intimacy associated with a romantic relationship. Help me.
Nope. Whole lot of nope. All of my nope.
This didn't come completely out of nowhere. There was always a bitter ex vibe going on from the moment they finally interacted with each other on screen, even if it was bitter ex besties. But nothing like it is now. The abundance of new personal conversations between the two, the language they use when speaking to or about each other, and the possessiveness on Bill's part during the breakup was just the perfect storm to produce a Bill x Ford tidal wave. A big part of the resurgence and interest in Gravity Falls that happened last summer was because of how huge this ship got. It was everywhere for months in most fandom circles, to the point that I think it took about a year to calm down. You know it's big when it's the top ship of the year on Tumblr and it's not one of the classics. It's a wild combination of, again, having these massively speculated on but never touched on areas of Gravity Falls finally be addressed, and living in a post-Shape of Water / Venom world where I guess more people are open to living their truth and letting their freak flag fly.
Look how tender that is.
No.
Yeah.
Boo.
Bill has been healed by the power of love.
Bill
he hasn't had love yet.
Bill has not been healed by the power of love.
How dare you think that love doesn't conquer all?
Oh god. No matter what kind of relationship you want to interpret this as, though, Bill was abusive towards Ford. More abusive than anyone could possibly be, right down to his very frame of mind, preying off Ford's insecurities and reinforcing that when he tries to defy him by showing off the all-encompassing power he has over his partner. His puppet.
Yeah, you gave me your heart, now I'm here for your soul.
Stripping away any sense of confidence or agency he had before Bill floated into his head by trying to convince Ford that he is nothing without him. That's what happens in abusive relationships. They prey on the insecure, they build you up and then convince you that you can't live without them, and they show their true colors and demand obedience when it seems like it's too late to escape. But Ford is lucky in a sense, because he got out. Against all odds, he should be free of Bill forever. But those scars are still there. That's why this book is laced with a B-plot of sorts, where Ford keeps interrupting Bill's book to warn us not to fall for his persuasions, to not make the same mistakes he did, because he barely made it out of that partnership with his life, and with the universe intact. Ever since he first encountered him, Ford's entire life has revolved around Bill Cipher. His personal life, his professional aspirations, every action he's taken in the last 30 years. and now flooding his mind with doubt and suspicion even after Bill is presumably dead and he shouldn't have to fear him anymore. It's clear this was not an easy thing for him to get over, because he still hasn't. We know that right from the start, later on when Ford coined the phrase Cypherholic, and now it's enforced to us more and more with every new glimpse into their history. It may be true that Ford brought some of this downfall onto himself by being too obsessed with making his mark on the world and throwing anyone who got in the way of that aside. But that's how Bill was able to manipulate him. Their entire relationship was built on Bill presumably helping Ford achieve his goals, while having his own ulterior motives. Yes, this was partly a result of Ford's hubris, but the punishment barely fits the crime, y'all. What's kind of weird is that the wave of unhealthy obsession runs both ways. Bill does everything in his power to hunt Ford down, even after their connection is severed, instead of doing the far more practical thing of possessing someone else to find the journals and restart the portal that is still very operational, just deactivated. But instead, his focus is put almost entirely onto Ford and then later the Pines family, until the events surrounding the portal run their course. There's a great gag where Bill drinks himself into a stupor after Ford leaves him, but it's reflective of how tunnel vision Bill got when it came to Ford. Even before the section on his time with Ford comes up, he's very cagey about past relationships. Whether it's because he took it hard losing again, or that this relationship meant more to him than he initially realized, is hard to say. But just like Ford, we know Bill didn't give up on his mission to destroy him. But unlike Ford, this pursuit ended in defeat. What was supposed to be a life-ending defeat. Because it's not just Ford's mission present through the many pages of this book. Part 5. Whatever happened to Bill Cipher? That's what we all want to know, right? That's why we all bought the book. Is Bill still alive? Is he a threat to the world or to the Pines family? Was this entire memoir just Alex Hirsch getting really high, writing down whatever came to mind and selling almost 1 million copies of it?
I wouldn't call it writing. It was more sort of random manic episodes that were then sort of stapled together by beautiful illustrations.
Well, Bill's very dodgy about these questions for a while. Anything remotely related to what happened to him and where he is now is brushed aside. But something is off about how Bill presents himself at first, even by his standards. No matter how much he claims to want to give you answers, he avoids the questions we're really asking the whole time. It's clear on a second reading that as much information as Bill is giving you, he's not telling you anything. Not anything you came into the book wondering about anyway. He's redirecting from the conversations he doesn't want to have to give you some of the bigger and juicier stuff to distract you from bringing any of it up again. A lot of Bill's life advice, chaotic as it can be, reads as a sales pitch, a way to convince you, the reader, to help him with familiar avenues of persuasion, building up to a twist where Bill attempts to make a more specific deal, to possess the reader and reignite Weirdmageddon. Possibly killing you and the entire world in the process, by the way, but apparently that's not a big deal. The interactive element of this book gives us reveal a bit of a horror angle, like someone staring into the camera and telling you the monsters are still lurking outside. But as Bill explains further, it becomes clear his plan has backfired, because in his distractions and temptations, he's shown his hand. This is the same plan he's tried over and over again for millennia now. We've seen all of his tricks, and we've seen that they've never worked. This isn't intimidation, it's desperation. Bill's been trying to give off the impression of the domineering, omniscient being, wielding power unmatched by many others in the cosmos, and while that may have been true at one point, stripped away of that power, he's nothing. Not a threat to anyone who doesn't take his words seriously. The final interruption of the book is not just from Ford, but the entire Pines family, sharing their own perspective on Bill and his book when the rest of the family discovers it. At first, Ford is horrified and worried about what it would do to them, sending them into the same spiral of fear it has to him since it appeared, or worse, taking over their minds. But instead, they laugh. They no longer see Bill as a threat. If writing a book from wherever he is the extent of his power now, and it absolutely is, otherwise he'd do something else, then it's easy to dismiss his words, throw away his persuasions and threats, and see him for what he really is. A desperate showman begging his audience to stick around for another act. When he sees the book through the eyes of his family, Ford realizes what Bill's strongest power was, his influence, over the thoughts and actions of anyone he persuades to follow his way, before and after his true intentions are clear. You can't erase a thought, but it turns out you can. And not with a highly advanced sci-fi gun, but with the power you have to let those thoughts guide your actions. With a much healthier support system, it's far easier to shut out the toxic and pervasive, because calling attention to it, putting ideas into words, is what gives it power. I know that kind of sounds like the classic just ignore them response to bullying, which doesn't work, trust me. I know, but it's more than that. Everyone in the Pines family has been hurt by Bill at some point, when he did everything he could to divide them. But now, completely whole, there's nothing substantial for Bill to taunt them with. Hearing all their views on the guy is really well thought out, from Mabel giving him breakup advice, to Dipper vowing to be stronger than him, to Stan just straight up calling him a loser. It feels so cathartic after everything he's done to all of them. Bill lost because he no longer has a hold on the minds of his victims. They're all happy, happier than he'll ever be. Because of them, what Bill wants, he'll never get now. And if he can't rely on the tricks and traps and general mindset he's had for his whole lifetime, what remains? Where is Bill's final place in the universe? What happened when he begged for another chance?
On the day Bill Cipher died, he used the trick he'd never tried. Shattered, broken, not yet dead, Cipher left the con man's head. A desperate plea, some panicked prayers, to meet the frilly guy upstairs. In a tank outside of space, the opposites met face to face. Just one shot to live again, he pled his case to his old friend.
Look, from one god to another, who cares I tried to kill those brothers? They're all ants, it's all a game. Let's press restart and try again. I'm too cool and fun to die. Just give this angle one more try.
The axe sighed in a knowing way. He expected this was what Bill'd say.
You cannot regrow through denial. You'll have to face my hardest trial. See my program to the end. Then you may yet live again.
Am I fighting demons? Eating ghosts?
You're getting what you need the most. One way to absolve your crimes. To change your form will take some time.
Bill could not believe his luck. This salamander was a schmuck. Easier than he'd ever thought it. He faked remorse, and the guppy bought it. In combat, Bill was undefeated. Whatever challenge, he could beat it. Bill shook the axe's hand with glee. How bad could these trials be?
When Bill made a final plea for the universe to give him another chance, the long speculated on axolotl answered by helping Bill in its own way, sending Bill to a therapy dimension to improve on himself, required to stay here until he's cured. This might be the most mind-blowing part of the book. Upon a second reading, there's some incredible foreshadowing to it. Like I said, Bill's been very cagey about what happened to him. There's this really disturbing way Bill describes purgatory as a place where everyone smiles but no one's happy, which is a messed up way to describe a mental facility. Thurbert Wagstaff even recommends that Bill seek therapy because it would drive him insane. Well, he may have been right. For once, Bill can't manipulate his way out of a bind. The beings in charge here have seen every demented maniac in every known reality who tried to cheat the system and dug into their psyches for all eternity. If he wants to live again, he has to follow the rules he agreed to and make a change. But it seems like he just can't. I truly believe that people, almost anyone, can have a more fulfilling life as a better and more compassionate person if given the correct understanding and avenues to grow. That appears to be what the Therapism planet works to achieve. Give those who wasted their lives being awful a chance at self-reflection and offer the chance to one day live again as a lower life form, no matter how long it takes. If Bill ever clears this test and makes it out, he will not be the same creature he was, inside or out. Make no mistake, we finally know the answer. Bill Cipher, as the universe once knew him, is dead. The only way he'll have any shot of having a future anywhere outside of this facility is through hard work and self-improvement. Instead, he fell back on his cheap tricks and used this whole book as a last-ditch effort to bust out of here. Anyone can change. I stand by that. But to do that, you have to learn. But some people will never learn. All this time, Bill has been projecting a facade on these pages of the multiversal conqueror who will never be knocked down because he's just not capable of looking deeper into himself. The fact that the details of Bill destroying his homeworld are heavily redacted in this book is proof of how much Bill has repressed what he is. It's hard to tell if Bill was indeed once admired and loved and then was shunned once his gift became more noticeable, or if he was always a freak in his dimension and he's suppressing the scorn. Frankly, at this point, the cause only matters so much when the results remain the same. He's not the kind of individual who will look inside, acknowledge the things he did were wrong, and atone for them. The narrative Bill has woven with our mind and blood in these pages has been deep denial about the fact that he lost. He can't let that go. He keeps thinking he'll find a way out and gets triggered at the slightest mention of his defeat. The way he lived his life just didn't work, and the only one suffering for it in the end is him. If you treat everyone like pawns or inferior beings or things to be acquired for your own purposes, eventually you're gonna be standing alone with nothing and no one to show for your choices. And that's the final note of the Book of Bill. On this incredibly bold and sobering note of Bill breaking down, holding on tight to his delusions that he can still salvage what he lost, blaming everyone besides himself for his downfall, and left to rot somewhere that is telling him exactly what he needs to do to become whole again, but he will not listen, insisting over and over and over and over again that he's fine. There are many things that make a Disney villain iconic. Their attitude, their cunning, maybe even a song. But high up on that list is their defeat. A cathartic comeuppance by their allies, their power, or maybe even their own hubris. In Bill's case, his most powerful weapon is taken away. His influence. He doesn't have any power now because he's all alone. Nothing left to conquer, no one else to manipulate, nothing meaningful to say. He even loses us because the book is over, destined to gather dust on your shelf until the next time you pick it up for fun or as a refresher, where the cycle starts again and ends in the same place. Bill stands strong against his fellow villains even when he's fallen. The presentation is remarkable to match the rest of the book that precedes it, and honestly, there's no better way to end Bill Cipher's story. Overall, the Book of Bill is nuts, but has way more moments of impact and drama than I expected going in. While I had no idea what I was getting myself into when this book came out, it feels exactly how a book written by Bill Cipher would. The musings are completely maddening, the presentation is astonishing, and the bits of lore around the world of Gravity Falls littered throughout enrich the text even further, with some extra callbacks and even codes to give fans that little serotonin boost in between all the reminders of your own mortality. Gravity Falls is one of the few communities where dumping more lore out of nowhere is almost always met with applause and delight. In this case, all the new additions couldn't even be contained to the main book. What's supplementary material of Gravity Falls without supplementary material of its own? I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention thisisnotawebsite.com, a tie-in website that launched alongside the book's release. At the time of making this video, the site is still live and it is packed with Easter eggs and extra bits of varied Gravity Falls material, with tons of keywords that unlock new secrets that fans spent weeks digging for. I was considering dedicating a segment of this review to the secrets of thisisnotawebsite.com, but it would just be me listing off bits hidden throughout the various ways to interact with the site, so I think I'll just share those pieces of trivia where they fit in future installments of Going Back to Gravity Falls. Trust me though, there are some real doozies here. But if the Book of Bill was just Bill Cipher's maniacal ramblings about the universe and its inhabitants, it probably wouldn't have warranted a whole video. It would have been entertaining, but that's it. But in between all the jokes and madness, it gives us more insight into who Bill is and how he operates than we've ever had before. Bill made a big impression with not a lot of appearances. A little went a long way with him. But a lot of Bill Cipher? Turns out that goes even further. Not to mention all the extra context concerning Ford, fueling a lot of enthusiasm and inspiration from the community to create analysis or transformative fan works that I haven't seen at this volume for quite some time. The Book of Bill could have been insufferable to read or diminish what made Bill so great to begin with, but Alex Hirsch really knows how to get into the head of his own characters, see things through their eyes, and flesh out their histories so they feel like they've lived full lives beyond the screen or page. The Book of Bill might be one of the best examples of that skill so far, using this chance to revisit Gravity Falls with a more explicit and unhinged character to take a more mature look at the events of the series. I think the fact that the Book of Bill is catered to an older audience helps it stand out a lot too, able to explore darker implications in the series that viewers young and old definitely latch onto, but were more tame than you might remember. That is not the case here. There are no punches pulled here, and it really leaves an impression. I don't know if this book's absurd approach to existential dread could cure depression or cause it. Let me know how it made you feel. It's possible the Book of Bill is geared towards an older audience, not just because the fans of the show have gotten older, but so is Hirsch himself. Remember, Alex Hirsch wasn't even 30 when Gravity Falls ended, and when this book came out, he was almost 40. His style of humor certainly hasn't changed, but the topics of observation definitely have, and the subject matter got much more complex for an already layered text. What truly makes the Book of Bill fantastic, though, is that it comes from one of the few franchises that I trust to leave well enough alone. Sure, I didn't see the point of the Book of Bill, but by the end, I was awestruck by the direction it took with concluding Bill's Cipher story, using the silly and eccentric to welcome people in, and then hit you with the nightmarish, as Gravity Falls tends to do. Ordinarily, I'd be concerned if such a popular character would indeed be left to rot in the void, but I trust the team behind Gravity Falls to know where to end things. This is a farewell to Bill Cipher, and may he find peace in the tangled mess of his mandated basket weaving. It's no wonder Gravity Falls received such a huge resurgence after this book came out. So many people were watching the show for the first time because of all the buzz. It's Gravity Falls as you remember it, but also how you've never seen it before. And it's crazy to realize that this show was so short-lived, yet it persists to this day in new and creative ways. I started Let's Talk About on the tail end of Gravity Falls' run. Literally the first review on this channel was of The Last Mabelcorn, the episode where Bill's history with the author is finally confirmed and explained. Never did I think that I would not only make it to 200 reviews and be doing this for 10 years, but to have it still center around Gravity Falls. The show ended when it was supposed to, but somehow Gravity Falls still endures, and that excites me so much. Who knows, maybe the next book will come out in time for the 300th episode, for as we all know by now,
Gravity Falls is real, and it will never die.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Let me know what you thought of the Book of Bill in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About for the last 200 episodes. And the most sincerest thank you to everyone who agreed to appear in this video with me. In order of appearance, TheHappySpaceman, Mike Gleason from Black Scarab Film Z, Cinemageddon Reviews, HexDawn, Julianna Henderson, Wait in the Wings, Orange Octopi, and Jinx Productions. The links to all the cool stuff these people do from their channels to their blogs will be linked in the description, so go appreciate what they do. And as always, a special thank you to my patrons who help support my content, including Jinx Productions and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check out any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.